This is a problem that Congress can solve. These automatic spending cuts that were put into place back in 2011 were designed to get Congress to actually avoid them by coming together with more sensible approaches to deficit reduction. I don't know why it is in this town folks leave stuff till the last minute. There's no other profession, no other industry where people wait until the 11th hour to solve these big problems.
Well, the clock is ticking. We're literally just over a week away from that looming deadline you heard the president describe. That is, unless Congress acts. If they don't, $85 billion in federal spending cuts will go into effect come March 1. But Congress is in recess this week. So despite the fact that it's really February 21st, you say, there's only 4 working days for Congress to get a deal done. Now, hoping to kickstart the process, the president called House Speaker John Boehner and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell earlier today. The phone call marked the first time that they have spoken about the issue since the fiscal cliff deal on New Year's. And joining us now to explain what's going on behind the scenes is Congressman Charlie Rangel, longtime Democrat representing Harlem in New York. Congressman, welcome, and thanks for a few minutes. I appreciate it.
Good to be with you again, Richard.
Well, March 1 fast approaching. Are you optimistic at this point that there's some 11th hour deal, or do you think we're going to hit the sequester?
I cannot believe that America's business people, church leaders, civic leaders are going to watch as the Congress commits economic suicide. I mean, the problem that we have on Friday, we created ourselves, and we can undo it. And the answer is clear, that we cannot allow sequester to take place. If we do, hundreds of thousands of Americans will be laid off. Train stations, airports, healthcare, education. Why would we want to do this to ourselves? This sequestration was created as a nightmare that we should avoid in doing it, and therefore bring ourselves to having a budget resolution. Well, it hasn't worked, and sequestration should not work. The answer to your question, the American people have. If they're going to be quiet and not call up their member of Congress and tell them to get off the dime, anything can happen.
You get the sense that the public says, this is like the boy who cried wolf. We had this with the debt limit, the fiscal cliff here. They've heard this before, and they always get a deal done at the end. Do you think the public's going to be surprised if this takes place? There's going to be impacts that are real, not just cosmetic, that are real, and they're going to be felt. And even if they're not laid off, their 401k's even going to take a hit.
Even the whole idea that it could happen has an adverse effect on the reputation and integrity of our fiscal responsibility as a nation. God knows this is that our people fighting overseas for us deserve better than this, to know that their government can't even decide on a military budget.
A couple months ago, Congressman, could you have foreseen this from happening? I mean, in the end, the president had a lot more political leverage, I think it's fair to say, back in December. And when he pushed this thing to February, I know people said, hey, with a 7% cut to the military, it'll be such a poison pill. Republicans will never go for it. But in the end, couldn't he have driven a harder bargain and a better deal 2 months ago rather than put it off till now?
We have a group of people in the Republican Party that have been elected to the House of Representatives that really don't believe that Obama won the election. We have people who don't believe that tax loopholes should be closed, that where we find exemptions and deductions and credits that shouldn't be, that we should reform, and to do that. We have people that believe that you have to show some hurting with Social Security. You have to hurt Medicare and hurt people on Medicaid in order to bring them to the table. It's insane, the options that they're giving the president and the American people. And to believe that we can just overcome a sequestration is wrong. In other words, these people in the House of Representatives are not seeing this too clearly. Some are advocating sequestration. And that's why I'm saying that we should hear from our synagogues, our churches, our mosques, our chambers of commerce, our businesses, our hospitals, our schools, and asking, have the Congress lost it completely?
But I had a Republican last night, Congressman, who said to me, what you don't get is the way these districts are carved out right now. You got Republicans who say, if I do anything with this president, I only lose. My approval ratings around the country can't go down anymore, but I got a safe seat. There's no incentive for me to reach across the aisle and meet the president halfway if he's talking about a single penny in terms of tax hikes for the top 1%. They said, I did that already. I'm not going back again. How do you break the impasse? You almost have to go to the sequestration to finally move somebody off the dime. I don't understand why we should think there's another deal unless they punt it for another 3 months.
I'm afraid that Republican you were talking to is just candidly telling you the very, very truth. But there does come a time where a politician in the Congress has to put the Constitution and his country above his own paycheck. And this is the time to do that.
Hey, Congressman, as always, I appreciate a few minutes. Thank you so much, and good luck here. Let's hope in March we're not still talking about this craziness.
I hope not.
Well, he hopes not, but I think we are. Your gut guys, you think they hacked something here before March 1, or you think this thing takes effect?
They probably figure out something.
You do?
Yeah, why not? They have every other time it happened. They seem to figure out a way to kick the can down the road.
Except in this case, you would argue that there are Republicans who certainly are worried about the consequences in district to a degree, but they think this is their last best card that they can play here, their last point of leverage.
I'm one of them, and I actually hope that they do play it, because I think that it's important that we finally actually come to a budget resolution, that finally the U.S. Senate actually, after how many years now, 3.5 or 4 years, actually adopts a budget and we have a spending plan. Maybe actually the president actually proposes something as opposed to just talking about things, and we have a real, honest-to-goodness budget plan that everybody gets to go up or down on. So do I hope that they play that card? Sure. Do I think it'd be complete disaster if sequester went in? No, I really don't.
I disagree only with the
don't.
last thing that he said. I think that we underestimate the volatility that'll come out of this forever. But Dominic, why is it fair for the president to say, I can't believe they're going to go through with this? Look at these guys, look how irresponsible they are, when he signed on to it. And for anybody to say, I can't believe these guys would actually go over the cliff, he's been dealing with them for 4 years. So he has to know who he's dealing with.
Yes, but Richard, he can't cut the deal by himself.
I agree with you, but he did sign the terms of the deal 2
He
months
did
ago.
the last time. But so, okay, he put off the disaster at that time and punted down the road. So did the leaders and the Republican leaders. But I mean, what is the president to do?
I guess my only point is, he seems genuinely surprised that there are members in the other party who embrace this idea. And I'm saying, why are you surprised? They've said it. They're on record as saying, we want this.
He doesn't propose anything. I mean, I don't understand the logic. We're having a one-way
honest,
conversation here.
to be honest, though, I believe he's not only said it, but he means it. That, and he's not going to negotiate with himself, but he will put in some entitlement cuts. And he wants some more follow-through on the loopholes that were promised, even by the Republican nominees during the campaign, to close some of those, and maybe some more revenue from the top one. So
he's not running for re-election. Why doesn't he have the courage to put a real proposal on the table? He's got
because
4 years left.
You've been through the budget process in Albany and you survived. You know you don't negotiate against yourself.
Well, actually, the governor, or whoever the governor is, actually has a responsibility to put a budget out. And the legislature actually disposes of it. His budget got voted, didn't get one vote. I mean, he doesn't put out a realistic negotiating document. Governor Cuomo, to his credit, actually puts out a budget that he believes represents where it is he wants to be from a policy point of view.
We've just nicely framed the political arguments for why I think there will be some sort of deal, probably just to kick the can down the road and tie it in with the budget deal at the end of March. But you saw the president doing local interviews that we saw at the beginning of this segment, basically saying, and will be saying, Congressman X has taken this away from your district, this away from your district, this away from your district. And we're seeing the he said, she said of they're not negotiating in good faith, they're not negotiating in good faith. It's going to be a pox on both houses, but you know, the president has 52% approval rating, Congress has 14% approval rating.
As a body, but not individually.
But if you begin the attrition on both sides, as people begin to get upset about the sequester.
Point, I think it's empirical, David, is at the end of the day he can say, hey, UPD, your PD of your department here, you'd all have jobs if it was up to me. These guys voted for this when I was willing to say, snap it to me, I'll punt. These guys said, let's draw the line. And they drew a line with your job. I mean, God forbid, we have a natural disaster and FEMA says, we compromised our response time because of the cuts here. Or imagine people's 401ks go down to what here because all of a sudden the volatility. You don't think it'll happen? You're probably right here. We don't know how long it'll last, but we're certainly playing with fire here a little bit.
Imagine that somebody was actually responsible, that the president was actually responsible, used some of that political capital instead of going to everybody's district and basically threatening them, and actually put a proposal on the table that said, these are the tax increases I want, these are the loopholes I want to close.
Why is the president solely responsible? Doesn't it take two to tango?
It takes three to tango. By the way, and as we all would agree,
where do you dance?
The Senate has never, ever put out a budget, right? And they haven't passed one in 3 years. So we're not even talking about Harry Reid and that cast of clowns, right? So now we basically just have the president who goes out and demagogues this exceptionally. And I agree with you on the politics. He's in a better spot in the politics, but he's not there in substance. He's not there. The congressional Republicans, for as much as we want to say, or you want to say actually, that they are stonewalling, they put budgets out. They take horrible votes in my view.
It ain't just me who's saying it. Every poll says of the people in D.C. they don't like, and there's a whole lot of them, House Republicans are at the top of the list.
But can we all agree they put out budgets?
Yeah, but
they
those
take
are,
tough votes. They actually lose seats on the basis of some of their votes.
But there are budgets that are so conservative and so one-sided that there's no way Democratic voters are going to go for it. There's no way the president's going to sign off on it.
His budget's going to look great compared to theirs.
Is that really much of a negotiation? If you offer $300,000 for a house and I say $8 million, I mean the offers have to be workable. They have to be something that both sides can at least deal with.
The reality is that there are some congressional Republicans who actually paid a price for voting for House budgets. They put tough proposals on the table that took away benefits from people, from Republican voters like seniors and groups like that. Why is it that the president, who again, he can't run again, this is his last rodeo, and he's losing power every day? Why doesn't he actually play this game?
I know I got to hit break, but I don't think there's somebody in the House that would play this role. But I've heard Lamar Alexander, I've heard a couple of Republicans in the Senate. If they're willing to stand on the same stage as the president and say, I don't love everything in this, but I think it's good for the country, and the president says ditto, a lot of this thing I think is going to hurt. But is there a Republican that's willing to stand with the president in a deal that isn't going to sit well with a lot of Republicans, but it's better than the deal of just punting it down the road?
Well, that's what we saw in the fiscal cliff, right? I mean, it was Joe Biden.
We also saw that Boehner thought he had a deal, comes back to his caucus, and then he had to go back and say, never mind.
But it wasn't in the fiscal cliff deal. It wasn't Harry Reid and Obama. It was Biden and what's his name? Mitch McConnell, right? I mean,
so they both think they punt. You think we get to the?
They definitely will punt. It's not going to happen. It can't happen.
I think they're going to get there to March 1 without a deal, but I hope the three of you are right. We take a quick break. When we come back, we set our sights on the always controversial Indian Point. Do 5.5 hours sound like enough time to evacuate more than 300,000 people? And I think the number is actually bigger than that. A new report's out about this controversial nuclear power plant that says all it ought to take in a worst case scenario is that long. We're not so sure. We'll talk about that after this.